have I been with you all this time? Don't you understand? When you see me, you're looking at the Father. In fact, only two people throughout human history have given rise to the question, not who is he, but what is he? The two people are Buddha and Jesus. Buddha's answer was, don't come to me, don't look to me, look to my doctrine, look to what I teach. Jesus' answer was, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart. Jesus is explicitly claiming to be God.
I might have gone to church, at Christmas time, gradually quit going. It's not as scary as I thought it was. It's a much more warm and open place, and God really is about love. It's not about the rules and the things that I remember as a young child. It really is about the love that God has for each one of us that's so deep and wonderful.
If you've been away from the Catholic Church for any reason, visit CatholicsComeHome.org.
Real nice to have you with me. I'm Dr. Ray Guarendi. The program The Doctor is In. It's a privilege to be on this program. I can't tell you how much it's a privilege to be on this program. I was in secular media for close to 30 years, and there was always something missing. And that something missing was the chance that I never had much to talk about the infinitely valuable things of life. Faith, virtue, connection with God, Christian love of others. Oh, it came up tangentially here and there, but it wasn't anything that I could boldly connect with better living. They wanted me on these shows to talk about better living. And hopefully there's a lot of truth in solid psychology and solid understanding of the human psyche. Can help. But there was always that big component that was left out. And being in Catholic media, both radio and TV, has allowed me to do that. And it didn't come until later in life. I had long since kind of given up the idea that I'd ever have a chance to do that. Had a lot of opportunities on the secular shows. I did hundreds of them, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But I thought, okay, well, that's about it. My media life is coming to a close. And then Catholic radio hit, and then Catholic television hit. And it's been a privilege ever since. Major privilege. I get a lot more out of you folks than I think you get out of me. And I'm not saying that just to be humble because I'm in training for the Humility Award. Although that is a pretty humble thing to say, you know what I mean? Wouldn't be that humble, but it is true. Thanks for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. Thanks, Andrew Kruchek, for all you do over there at Ave. And thanks to all of you. And as I said, because now I'm on Catholic media, I can say, walk with God. It is your eternal walk, the one that will always be.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Transmitting the treasures of our Catholic faith to your radio every day. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network. Radio for your soul.
Do you feel life is flying past you? Are you desperate for moments of peace and quiet? Lord, Teach Me to Pray, the free Ignatian prayer series, opens hearts to His voice, to the peace you are seeking, the only love that fulfills the human heart, Jesus. God is calling you to true joy, knowing Jesus personally. Lord, Teach Me to Pray is free. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com, click the red box, order Lord, Teach Me to Pray now. Lord, Teach Me to Pray.
Travel back centuries to an intimate candlelit room performance of sacred music from the best Renaissance and Baroque composers, performed by some of Dallas's greatest artists in this Lafayette Musicians Concert. An unforgettable experience and unique gift for family and friends at the historic Aldridge House Museum on Swiss Avenue, November 11th, 6 p.m. Complimentary valet parking and cocktail reception. Limited tickets available at LafayetteMusicians.org.
I'm Mathieu Perraigne du Motier, and reach your love of faith and classical music. I invite you to join us.
Are you looking for peace? Longing for joy? Want to meet the giver of all goodness? God is calling the laity to bring Ignatian prayer into a suffering world. Work for the new evangelization. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com. Order your free digital training and manual. Find true happiness and everlasting joy. Go to LordTeachMeToPray.com and click on the red button today. It's free. Approved by the USCCB.
At first, it felt like a relief.
I thought I would forget about it with time.
I was not prepared to accept the responsibility.
Then, things changed.
I felt anger, and things started going wrong everywhere.
The depression wouldn't let me be who I used to be.
Are you a man suffering due to a loss from an abortion decision? You are not alone. There are people who can help at ProjectJosephDallas.org.
I realized I had lost my child.
I felt like I couldn't be forgiven.
Now it's been years and years of this.
Don't suffer alone. Visit ProjectJosephDallas.org. A message from Project Joseph of Dallas, a ministry for men who have suffered the experience of a
Welcome to Back to the Father, a show about the journey of life focused on our final end, which is God Himself, our loving Father. And now, here's your host, Dave Palmer.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Back to the Father. It's a show here on the Guadalupe Radio Network social media sites of YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, where we talk about some topic related to the Summa Theologia of St. Thomas Aquinas. He is the doctor of the doctors, the angelic doctor, and so we like to talk about things that he wrote about our beloved Catholic faith in the Summa Theologia. So thank you for being with us. We had some technical difficulties last week, and of course last week was the week of All Saints Day and All Souls Day and Halloween, All Hallows Eve before that. And we had every intention of timing it so perfectly that we would be talking about indulgences on a week when we were all focused on the holy souls in purgatory and this kind of thing. But God had other plans, and we were not able to work that out. We had some technical difficulties, and so we're going to do that again today and talk about indulgences. And interestingly, I've got some information about Martin Luther and his 95 Theses, because I have never read it. Sissel has. She used to be a Protestant, so she had it kind of drilled into her when she was younger. But it's interesting, in the 95 Theses, the word indulgence appears in about 34 of his theses. And I read over some of them, and I'm going to read a few of those, and it's interesting to kind of pick it apart and see exactly what he was so hung up about with indulgences back in 1517, October 31st, he nails the 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg, Germany. But it was very insightful to see some of the things that he was writing, because I think we could say, you know what? I don't know that we're that much in disagreement with you. I think the things that you were all uptight about, the church doesn't even teach. So we'll get to that. And then how about this for a title? Indulgences and Gluttony. That's got to win some kind of an award for the best title for a podcast. Indulgences and Gluttony. We're about 13 days away from Thanksgiving, and a lot of people are thinking about eating, and a lot of people overeat like myself. And so I thought it might be a nice reminder to talk about the capital sin of gluttony, just so you don't get too excited about overeating on next Thursday. All right, 2 Thursdays from now, right? Yeah, 2 Thursdays. Yep. Okay, don't celebrate it next Thursday, okay? Don't show up at your grandma's house next Thursday because you heard it on Back to the Father, okay?
Can I tell a funny story?
Can we judge whether it's funny or not?
I guess you could. I mean, you were talking about not celebrating too early. I almost had a lady who was going to celebrate it too late because she was convinced the final Thursday, it was the last Thursday of the month that we celebrate Thanksgiving, not the fourth Thursday.
Yeah,
it's the fourth Thursday.
So we have 5 Thursdays this month?
Yeah, we do. She told her whole family to come on the 30th. And I'm just amazed that no one in her family told her that's not Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that would be so funny. What if you got it wrong?
Yeah.
And then like the next day you're showing up for Black Friday and all the Black Friday sales are gone. They're like done.
I'm like, the next day would be December 1st.
Yeah.
So
right.
You're not even in November
You're
anymore.
the wrong month
It was
altogether.
just very funny. She was trying to order turkeys from us at the restaurant I work at part-time, and it was very comical being on the phone and just being like, no, that is not Thanksgiving. She's like, yes, it is.
Yeah. How interesting. That is funny.
We saved her for whole Thanksgiving.
All right. I will grant you that was a funny story.
Thank you.
Okay.
I
Sorry
tried.
for my initial doubts. All right. That's Cecil Anderson. This is William Kirkendall. I'm Dave Palmer, and thank you for joining us. Don't just sit out there and, 'cause I talk to people and they say, oh, yeah, I was watching the show. And I'm like, why didn't you comment? Why didn't you let us know you're out there? We get very lonely. Sometimes we think nobody's watching because
Forrest is watching.
Okay. Forrest is watching. So thank you, Forrest, for letting us know that you're there. And anybody else that's watching, if you're watching it on a recorded basis, go ahead and leave comments, and I'm sure we'll come across them. But so here's the thing about kind of my beef about indulgences and about gluttony is that, first of all, indulgences are a great gift to the church, and most people, myself included, do not take advantage of them. Thanks be to God, my pastor mentioned indulgences last Sunday at Mass. In fact, my parish is right across the street from a cemetery. And so he said during his homily, hey, why not just go right after Mass to a cemetery and pray for the dead there and get to confession? He talked about all the normal requirements. And so we went over there after Mass, and there was like half of our parish was there.
Wow.
And it was so
Nice.
cool. So, But I don't think I did the confession within the range, And so, anyways, and then my beef on gluttony is that, and again, I don't know if I overanalyze this too much, but it's like the Monday after Thanksgiving in offices and schools and all around this land, people will all be kind of bragging about how much they ate. Oh my gosh, I had 4 pieces of cherry pie, and but. I mean, objectively speaking, that's like a mortal sin. That's like a capital sin, you know. Objectively speaking, that could, So I don't know. Am I just taking it too seriously, or are we just not talking about gluttony enough? And so anyway, I've got some information about gluttony that we'll talk about. And William, haven't given you much of a chance to say anything yet. Anything on your mind before we get started?
Yeah, I guess just one comment about what you said there. I think it's actually I think it's probably the latter, honestly. I don't think we talk about gluttony enough, honestly. I don't think it's that, we
I think we put a lot of other sins in front of it.
We lack the overstating of it a lot of the time.
Yeah. And also coupled with that is the laxity of fasting. It's really all we really have to do as Catholics these days is 2 days of the year I mean, abstain from meat, or
it's not that hard.
It's not that hard, especially compared to other faiths. Even the Orthodox, they take it a lot more seriously.
Very seriously.
But then again, we don't need the church to tell us to fast, right?
No,
I mean, any one of us, we could just do it, right? And in fact, I heard a talk recently where they said, on Wednesdays and Fridays, we should do water fasts, maybe bread and water fasts. And my wife and I were watching it. We're both like, yeah, and then the next Wednesday comes along, and it was so funny.
Like, whoops!
It was so funny because the next Wednesday came along, and we're like, okay, we're gonna fast, And so we did. And then I got home for dinner, and she's like, today's All Saints Day. We're not supposed to be fasting. This is but which is true. It's a solemnity. It happened to be a Wednesday, and we're like, okay, so we ordered Mexican.
You're like, whoops. Nice. Well,
So.
You do have to be very on top of the church calendar, on top of to know when are the times to feast and when are the times not to.
Right.
Forrest commented that not just food leads to gluttonous behavior.
Not just food. Okay. So I've got some of the stuff from Aquinas, and I was on with Rudy and Adrian this morning, and the reason I kind of added gluttony in was because last Friday I was on with them talking about indulgences, but then we didn't have a show, and so I wasn't going to I'm going to talk about indulgences again. So I had to just think of something else to talk about, and gluttony seemed like a good topic, but we had a pretty interesting conversation. So, all right. So first slide here, I guess as kind of, an introductory thing, Thomas asks in the supplement 2:1 whether the pains of purgatory surpass the temporal pains of this life. Have we talked about this? I get really.
Oh, are the pains in purgatory worse than the ones we have in this life?
Did we not talk about Charlie horses and stuff, or is that?
I think we did.
Did we?
I think we did.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Why am I thinking we already had this conversation, even though the show?
I don't know. Deja vu. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good
question. So we did talk about this. Okay. So William is so convinced that we've already talked about these topics. So what is Aquinas going to say about whether the pains in purgatory are worse than the worst pains that we have here on earth? Do you know what he says?
I mean, I can look ahead.
I can always do with a refresher, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
please,
so now
please.
here's what he's going to say. He's going to say there's two pains in purgatory. Do you know what the two pains are? The two types of pain?
Types of pain? Is one of them going to be like being away from God, kind of?
Ding, ding, ding. Okay. All right, we have a winner.
Thank you. As it should be.
And what's the other one?
That I couldn't tell you. Oh, is it just like the fire?
The physical pain, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know we were being that generic.
Oh,
I thought we were being more specific. Sorry.
Yeah. Sometimes it's okay. So here's what, and you like my pictures of all the pain. You see that the pregnant woman, which is a pain that William and I will never have to. I heard that's pretty intense. Not to scare you off from having children, Sissel, but.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pains women go through every often. So, but
Yeah.
At least when it's pregnancy, you end with a baby, a beautiful, child of God.
Yeah.
So
that's in Scripture. St. Paul writes about that. It's like when a woman's in labor, she's in pain, but then when the child arrives, it's all worth it. And and then the guy wakes up and says, "Good job, honey."
He better not have been waking up.
My mom, in the old days, my mom was telling me about this. In the old days, the men were not allowed.
Yeah, they weren't back there at all.
And my mom tells me these horror stories. I mean, this is like in the 1960s, like when my mom was having babies, and the woman would go into labor. The nurse would say, "Okay," I mean, literally, I'll be back in about an hour. And so she would just labor in a room all by herself. There's nobody in there.
Yeah, no.
And
I'm sorry.
And so my mom,
I'm going to be squeezing someone's hand.
or like a what is it?
Doula.
Doula or something like that. Yeah. So nowadays it's all different, But I guess one time my mom had a baby, and my dad, when they went to go tell my dad that the baby, was a boy or whatever, they had to wake him up. And my mom was like, "What? I went all through this, and you're in the."
I will say some of my favorite stories I've seen or the husband is dedicated at his wife's side, but then he gets a little woozy and he faints. And so all the nurses are taking care of the husband.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. That is bad.
I know. It's so funny.
That's not the husband of the year award. Okay?
He tried, but know.
Yeah, I didn't try hard enough.
Anyhow.
All right, so here it is. Next slide here. In purgatory, there will be a twofold pain, as Sissel Anderson will say in a future time. How did Thomas know that? Okay, he said, said, one will be the pain of loss, namely the delay of the divine vision, and the pain of sense, namely punishment by corporeal fire. With regard to both, the least pain of purgatory surpasses the greatest pain of life. So imagine the worst pain you've ever experienced, and purgatory is going to be a bit worse than that. For the more a thing is desired, the more painful is its absence. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced just the pain of like unrequited love, or you know, you like somebody and they don't like you, or I don't think either of you have had like a major breakup or anything, right? But
No.
That's you know,
Had a lot of non-starters though.
Well, count yourself lucky, because
Yeah, so I haven't experienced like really, really liking someone that we actually had something and then it not working out.
Yeah.
I've just been like, I'd be interested in that person, and then then they go off with someone else. So it's like they never knew. I'm just over here like, okay, bye.
Okay, yeah, not quite as
That's
painful.
not quite as painful. No,
easy come, easy go.
Thankfully, yes.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, it can be very painful. I mean, split ups. People think about the people that get divorced, and it's really, really painful. Or somebody dies. I mean, we lost a dear friend just this last week to suicide, and that's hard. I mean, it's really tough. Really hard, yeah. Okay, so, and since after this life the holy souls desire the sovereign good with the most intense longing, both because their longing is not held back by the weight of the body, and because had there been no obstacle, they would already have gained the goal of enjoying the sovereign good. It follows that they grieve exceedingly for their delay. And it's interesting to think about like the time in purgatory. Like I was talking to my mom yesterday, and my mom has lost two husbands, and one of them, her second husband, after my dad died, she got married again. The last one died exactly a year ago today.
Wow, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so she said there was a mass actually right now going for him, and she wasn't going to be able to watch our show. And then she said, she said, I don't know if we still need to pray for Dad or not, because my dad died like 25 years ago, but who knows?
God's out of time too, so even if you pray
True.
now, it doesn't mean it can't be applied to the time.
Right.
It's funny, my young adult group, last night we were meeting and we were talking about redemptive suffering. And after, towards the end of the meeting, we were talking about different things you can do in offering up prayers for people, especially people in purgatory. And I said, and also like just, praying if you're passing a graveyard, there's so many things. And then I said, or you can go visit the columbarium or barium. I don't know if you heard people say that, columbarium, barium. We have one at our church. And I was like, oh, and they were all like, where is that? And so we went on a field trip in the rain. And so I showed them, I was like, here guys, come pray.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I just
never hurts.
Maybe it's, I just think about this. Maybe we just don't want to deal with death in our culture any longer.
No, we do not.
And since you don't want to deal with death, you don't want to deal with purgatory, and therefore you don't want to deal with indulgences, because once you take indulgences seriously, you have to also realize that there is such a thing as purgatory. And then when you read a paragraph like this, you realize, boy, this is some serious stuff. I mean, this is going to be like extremely painful, because I would imagine most people that die go to purgatory.
I would imagine. Yeah, I'd imagine.
And the way he's describing this, that's horrendous.
Yeah,
not
looking forward to that, guys.
Yeah, so you shouldn't shoot for purgatory.
No,
you gotta shoot
for heaven.
A lot like hell in the sense that it's painful, but like not eternal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it has like the same feeling.
You still have hope,
right?
Well, what was it that? What was was it Dante that had the sign over hell? About
I think so.
No hope.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a little bit more eloquent than that.
Yeah.
No hope.
No hope. It was
Dante, the great poet. No hope.
Yeah. No hope. Yeah, there was something a little bit better than that.
I know what you mean,
but okay. So again, since pain is not hurt, but the sense of hurt, the more sensitive a thing is, the greater the pain caused by that which hurt it. Wherefore, hurts inflicted on the more sensible parts cause the greatest pain. We talked about the Charlie horses, and I mentioned before that that's probably the most intense pain. But God in His mercy doesn't, at least not for me, give me like Charlie horses for like a day and a half. I mean, that would be. I mean,
that does sound like childbirth, though.
I know, but even childbirth is typically a day and a half.
Yeah, it doesn't last forever.
But it's
right?
hours. It could be hours.
It could be hours. Yeah, it could be hours. It could be a day. There's been some really unfortunate cases.
Yeah.
And Charlie horses usually you just got to walk it off.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I talked to women. I guess it's the contractions that really. It's just like your whole body, it gets squeezed or something. Okay, are there any women out there who have had babies that can explain to three people who have never had a
not
baby?
had babies, and 2 of them that have no chance, despite what the culture says.
never
Also, Forrest knows what it is in Dante. It's abandon all hope who enters.
Yeah, there you go. That's more eloquent than no hope. Abandon all hope, ye who enter.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Forrest.
Thank
Appreciate
you, Forrest.
it.
I'm glad. All right, because all bodily sensation is from the soul, it follows of necessity that the soul feels the greatest pain when a hurt is inflicted on the soul itself. Okay, so there's a lot there. I mean, he's connecting the body and the soul. Of course, we're a composite, and the sensible pain, the other kind of mental pain that one experiences, and so, all right, and so that's that. And if you have any comments or questions, and then he asks. I think I mentioned this before at the very, 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 very end. It's actually called the appendix 2. He says whether there is purgatory after this life, which is interesting because it's like the last article of the entire Summa. There's 3,000 articles.
At the end of it, after talking about purgatory extensively, he decides to ask, by the way, does purgatory exist?
Yeah. That's like me.
Really
that's like
funny.
me talking to you for an hour and then saying, does this still exist? It's like, well, yeah, you've been talking to
I'm like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
So I always think it's kind of interesting. I wonder what the story is behind that of why purgatory.
Watch it be just like one of his scribes just accidentally dropped the manuscript one day and it got mixed up.
Yeah, because this would have been the part after Aquinas died.
Right. And he's like, I think I'll just tuck it in at the end.
Yeah, that absent-minded scribe. Yeah, that forgot about
that
purgatory.
changed the whole course of the book.
But anyways, okay, so does it exist? And more so, I think what he's going to explain here is why it exists. He said it is sufficiently clear that there is a purgatory after this life. Okay, so there doesn't seem to be a lot of equivocation there. For if the debt of punishment is not paid in full after the stain of sin has been washed away by contrition, nor again are venial sins always removed when mortal sins are remitted, and if justice demands that sin be set in order by due punishment, it follows that one who after contrition for his fault and after being absolved dies before making due satisfaction is punished after this life. Wherefore, those who deny purgatory, Protestants, are you listening? Speak against the justice of God, for which reason such a statement is erroneous and contrary to faith. Hence, Gregory of Nyssa, after the words quoted above, adds, "This we preach, holding to the teaching of truth, and this is our belief. This the universal church holds, by praying for the dead, that they may be loosed from sins. This cannot be understood except as referring to purgatory, and whosoever resists the authority of the church incurs the note of heresy." Okay, so he couldn't be any more clear, could he?
I really think you should have put it clearer. Just like, stated more like...
You're just being contrary?
No. Yes, basically. No, that's very clear.
It's pretty straightforward,
I think it's pretty straightforward,
yeah.
It always bothers me when you attend like a Protestant funeral or just even after someone who isn't Catholic dies. The focus is only on the family. Like, pray for the family, pray for the family, pray for the family. And I'm like, I'm praying for the soul.
Because that person's in heaven. I mean, they canonize.
And when I started coming to Catholic events, I remember I was at a retreat with my youth group, and I talked about someone, and I said, and they died. And then a whole bunch of kids, their heads just like bowed quickly, and they're like, oh, pray for his soul, And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, the Catholic theology is so much more realistic and so much better because they have to...
If we were only going on a Protestant thing, don't think heaven would have very many people in it.
Yeah, because nobody would be praying for him, you mean?
Well, I'm saying if we were going on the idea that there was no purgatory, heaven would not be very populated because not a lot of us would make it.
Yeah,
just based on our actions here on this earth.
If it's just like black or white,
if it's like you have to die at the right second, guys.
All or nothing.
It's not gonna.
When you think about it, it's probably the most significant part. I mean. That's like it all comes down to that. I mean, we live these 60, 70, 80 years of life. We die, we get judged. We're either going to heaven or hell, and then that's eternity. I mean, that's what every Christian believes. We ought to take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, we don't really take it seriously while we're here right now.
Yeah.
And
we do
kinda
on
need
Back to the Father, though.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
You're welcome, everybody.
For this.
For that 1 hour every Friday.
Hey, it's one more hour than what people might have gotten before.
And the 40 people who watch this every week, now they can't say they were
40,000 people that watch every week.
Okay.
They can't say, yeah. We're one step at a time. We're making everyone know about things so that they cannot say that they were ignorant on it.
Yeah, because I told you about the time I was teaching the high school class, and I said, okay, now I teach them about invincible ignorance, and one of the kids raised his hand and said, Mr. Palmer, will you quit telling us this? Because basically he was saying, I want to remain invincibly ignorant, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. I'm working on a presentation to do next year for my young adult group, just because with recent holy days and things, I realize that there is some lack of, because everyone comes to young adults, in different stages of their faith and knowing different things. And I realized that there was some lack of understanding about holy days of obligation, even the mass obligation, and a lot of other things that are amazing tools to our faith, like, fasting or abstaining from something on Fridays in memory of Christ's sacrifice. And so, there's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm about to tell them things, so they're going to be culpable for this now.
Yeah. And you've only been a Catholic for like 5 years? 6 years?
I think it's gonna be 7 this year.
Oh, wow.
If I'm thinking about it. Probably.
Yeah. So what
7 or 8.
percent of the Catholic teachings do you think you understand? I mean,
gosh. Well, thankfully I work at a Catholic radio station. That helps significantly.
I know it really does.
That helps significantly.
Yeah.
There are still some. I think I have a good understanding of what, as a Catholic, I should be doing, and like what things are, the church requires of us, the bare minimum. What we should be going beyond that. I think sometimes if I had to explain all those things in detail of why, maybe that might get a little hazy. So I'd say a solid 32%.
So only a third after listening to Catholic radio for 6 years? I think it's higher than that.
Faith is so vast, though. No, I think I have a little bit of knowledge about most subjects, but I think I also know where to look further for things, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like I don't know everything, but I know, Aquinas wrote on that, or Augustine wrote on that, you know, that kind of thing.
Imagine if we were angels and it was all just infused.
So amazing.
In us.
I've always wanted, this is not how it works with angels, but like if you had like a big book and you need to just get all that knowledge, if you could just like knock it on your head, and then.
Right, it just boom, it's in.
You have like a dictionary.
Kind of like when phones, you can like tap them.
You tap them and like you pay or something like that.
Yeah.
Just instant knowledge. I would just go to libraries and be like, don't.
Yeah, that's why I say with my class, my class, it takes a whole year to teach the Summa. And I said, if we were angels, this class would be 1 second. I would just say, there, it's there. Okay, it just all went into your head. But I don't know, it's kind of fun to learn it discursively, I think. It's.
Well, by the way, Forrest is saying, shattering ignorance an hour at a time. I think that should be our new tagline. Back to the Father. Shatter ignorance an hour at a time.
I like that.
That's kind of fun. I
Forrest,
like it.
Do we have your permission to steal that?
Yeah, we'll give you 1% of what we make on this show, which is 0.
That's very generous.
We don't really make anything on the show, so I can. And then he also says that
you get paid. You me a salary to work here.
We get paid a salary. We'll take it from William's salary. We'll take it from William's salary. Also, he said, "All that I know is straw," which isn't that what Aquinas said at the after? I'm just saying, if Aquinas said all he knows is straw, 32% I think is pretty good.
Yeah, if you know 32% of all the teachings of the church, I mean that's pretty darn good.
He says it's public domain now, so we can use it. That was a quick turnaround.
Yeah, all right. We won't have to dock it out of William's salary. By the way, I was talking to my mom, and remember I made the comment about how you, William Kirkendall, could probably go to any like horrible public university and have the worst professors in the world. And she's like, "You are so right about William. He is such a bright boy." I want, but then at the same time, you don't want to be presumptuous, by just saying like, because some teachers could be very persuasive.
That and also you have no idea also what life throws at you sometimes that might shake
the
things.
Pressure
you
and all that.
Shake. Also, well, just silly things you didn't think. I didn't think in college I'd ever have any temptation to not be practicing Catholic, and it wasn't that I had a temptation to not be practicing Catholic, but I went through some really rough times that made it like. I was more tempted to like, I don't know if I can go to mass today. I feel horrible.
Yeah, because we're
in a spiritual
we're wounded,
rut sort of thing.
And God forbid, and I don't think this would ever happen either, but you meet some girl that you fall in love with, and she happens to be a Mormon or something, and emotions can be so strong. I mean, I don't think that would ever happen with you, but I mean, you never want to just presume I'm an easy street. I know my faith, because a lot of people. I mean, there was that. and again, I'm not trying to judge him, but Father John Karapi was a priest who used to teach the catechism, and he was like extremely powerful. He knew the catechism inside and out. But he fell, and I think he has since come back. But just knowing the faith doesn't protect
do
you.
it. Yeah, you got to have that. I mean, anything could always happen, but you got to have that relationship with God too.
You got to practice it.
Yeah, it's got to
and
be practiced.
Be humble enough to realize that without His grace,
you
we
could easily.
We can
I mean,
fall.
faith is a gift ultimately. So
I don't want him to say, you know what, Dave Palmer back on Back to the Father said this would never happen to me, and here I am, a heretic.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think sometimes we set ourselves up for failure by being like, I will never be like blah.
Right.
And so don't be surprised if that temptation comes. At least, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that I want it to come, but just know that the devil works very hard.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. So next slide: spiritual treasury of the church. Have we looked at this before? Have you seen this kind of pinky picture?
Pull it up.
Tell me if this looks
Not
familiar
the
at all.
specific one.
So
no.
this is so cool. You have up on top Jesus Christ and these saints, right, up on the top level. And this is the spiritual treasury of the church, okay? It says the satisfaction of Christ, Our Lady, and the saints. So what Thomas is going to explain is that the merits of Jesus Christ and all the saints who came before us, they store up more graces than they need for themselves, of course, and Christ's would have been sufficient, but he also allows us to cooperate with him. Okay, so you imagine you got Christ and the Blessed Mother and the saint, the apostles, and okay, so then there's an overflowing of grace that was more superabundant than what they needed. And as this picture shows, that flows down to the people who need it. So you see they've got these like buckets that they're filling up. It's a beautiful really visual. Cool. And then you see like the lady in the wheelchair and the guy with the crutches. And so what this represents is it's people who are spiritually wounded, perhaps even physically wounded, who need the graces that were earned by Jesus Christ. And so and then you see that word indulgences in the stream of the graces flowing down from the top level. So this picture speaks 1,000 words. It's really beautiful. And I use this a lot so anyway, the next slide kind of explains, this is Thomas's words, and he's going to explain better than me what I just explained. He says, indulgences hold good both in the church's court and in the judgment of God, for the remission of the punishment which remains after contrition, absolution, and confession, whether this punishment be enjoined or not. The reason why they avail is the oneness of the mystical body, in which many have performed works of satisfaction exceeding the requirements of their debts, in which too many have patiently borne unjust tribulations, whereby a multitude of punishments would have been paid had they been incurred. So great is the quantity of such merits that it exceeds the entire debt of punishment due to those who are living at the moment, and this is especially due to the merits of Christ. For though he act through the sacraments, yet his efficacy is nowise restricted to them, but infinitely surpasses their efficacy. And the saints to whom this superabundance of satisfaction is found did not perform their good works for this or that particular person who needs the remission of the punishment, but they performed them for the whole church in general. These merits, then, are the common property of the whole church. Okay, did that make sense? Yeah? Okay.
Sort of.
Solid. I'm 100% all over it. Just like when I just took that and I smacked it into my head and it's infused.
So seriously, it does make sense?
No. I the first part I got, and then somewhere towards the end of that first paragraph, I got a little lost.
So what it means is that when the Pope offers like a plenary indulgence to do a particular, pilgrimage or praying at a graveyard, he's not just like offering something that he's making up out of thin air, right? There's actually if you wanted to use like a visual, like it's not a physical thing because it's grace, but he has an actual treasury of grace that is at his dispensal. At his disposal or dispensal, right?
Yeah, whatever you say.
So and I think this is when we get to Martin Luther. This is what he doesn't understand. because, well, first of all, he's hung up about the sales of indulgences. Okay. Now, did some people illegally sell indulgences back then? Probably.
Sure.
But they could do that today. I could probably go somewhere and find some,
someone gullible.
Yeah, gullible enough, and I have.
Here, if you just buy this, you can get a ticket to heaven.
But did the church ever officially say you can sell indulgences? I think Luther was just really hung up on that.
And that's the thing, is that there's always going to be people who are going to be falsely teaching something of the church, and that's always going to happen. Yeah, he was extremely hung up about it.
Do you remember a couple weeks ago I think it was the Dallas Diocese put a notice out about some person that had been seen on some parish campuses. Do you remember that? He was going by Father Martin.
Yep.
Remember that? And he was, I don't know what he was doing, but he might have been trying to swindle money out of people and for confessions or something like that. They didn't say exactly what he was doing, but so it happens all the time. I mean, as long as people have,
well, there's people frequently. Pastors get their identity stolen in their emails and things like that, where a bunch of parishioners will get emails saying, "Oh, Father John really needs gift cards to iTunes or something,"
I get those all the
something
time.
ridiculous.
I go back and
then
forth with
the church has to go and say, "Oh, that is not actually Father John. He's not asking you for money like that. Like that's not."
They always use the priest.
They always use the priest because everyone's like, "Oh, Father," especially if there's someone who's just maybe not as used to that culture. I think, fortunately, our generation probably super in attune to how people use that to their advantage.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right.
Really
so let's cover these 95 theses.
All 95, right?
No, not all 95. So you did learn these, or?
I mean, there was a few. So every October, while Catholics are celebrating things like All Saints and All Souls, we were celebrating Reformation Day at the Protestant church I was at before I became Catholic, because it was a very Calvinist Reformed church.
Yeah.
And so, yes, on those times in Sunday school when I was in high school, they would plop down 95 theses and we would go through them. You
didn't have to memorize them, did you?
No, thankfully, no. I'd memorize things like the Westminster Catechism and stuff like that, and maybe the Heidelberg Catechism, but not these, thankfully, because there's a lot.
Yeah. Did you ever have a test over them?
No, I think we really just broke them down and studied them a little bit. I don't think it was ever again, my mom was my teacher in homeschooling, so she was the one who was telling me when I was memorizing things. And at Sunday school, they mostly had us memorize Bible verses and maybe some catechism. Good. So thankfully, no. But we did have a game at Reformation Day. Pin the 95 theses on the wall.
Oh, really?
like pin the tail on the donkey.
And you were blindfolded?
Yep. And then they also played the game of Bible smuggling, where some guys at the church were dressed up as monks and you had to smuggle Bibles past them, and if you got caught, you got thrown in jail.
Was that like an anti-Catholic thing?
Oh, well, it was trying to show see, the Catholic Church was withholding the Bible.
Yeah, I'd say that's anti-Catholic.
Yeah, just a little bit kind of thing. And so, I just never even realized how damaging of a picture that is as a kid, to be the guys dressed as monks were the scary, not good people. You're trying to run around, all the kids are screaming. It was like a fun game, it wasn't like a, but I was like, wait a second.
And now monks in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're not throwing me in jail.
Right. No, not yet anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, I just have 2 slides, and I just want to kind of go over some of these. I'll go through them kind of quickly because I do think this says a lot about the kind of the mentality of Martin Luther. He says, okay, number 1, and these are not in the order. It's just, this is the way that this spreadsheet, just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are, I think, in the 40s or something.
Gotcha.
Okay, so papal indulgences must be preached with caution, lest people erroneously think that they are preferable to other good works of love. So the first thing is, Luther apparently was not opposed to papal indulgences.
Right.
Okay, by his very admission here, he said they must be preached with caution. Okay, so there's some common ground we have. Martin Luther was not against indulgences in principle. Okay, so there we go. We agree on that. Then he says Christians are to be taught that the Pope does not intend that the buying of indulgences should in any way be compared with works of mercy. Okay, so I think we would, the Pope would not agree with the buying of indulgences. Okay, right. So there's no problem there either. Christians are to be taught that he who gives to the poor or lends to the needy does a better deed than he who buys indulgences. again, he's hung up on the fact,
he's not talking about indulgence. He's talking about buying
indulgences,
which is not the same thing.
Yeah. So again, and then because love grows by works of love, man thereby becomes better. Man does not, however, become better by means of indulgences, but is merely freed from penalties. Okay, so let me see. Man does not, however, become better by means of indulgences, but is merely freed from penalties. Okay, I think this is problematic because I think this has to do with the fundamental disagreement that Luther had about the human person, where we say that we're wounded, but that he thought that through sin we were just utterly depraved.
Total depravity.
Yeah, total depravity. Mm-hmm. So I think 4 is very problematic there. And if you're watching out there in social media land and you want, and again, I'm really literally reading these for like the second time, just in a little bit of preparation and reading them right now. So I'm kind of flying off the handle here. So just if any of you have any more experience, including you, Sissel, let me know.
I was going to say really quickly about number 4. He's not like wrong in the sense that I think we would see that indulgences help us as people, whereas he thinks it's just like a transactional thing. Like, not only, yes, indulgences, when granted by the Pope in such a way, can, free us from purgatory time, but it also helps us here on earth, cleansing our soul, because it's doing good acts like going to confession, praying, and stuff like that. So I don't know.
He wouldn't have had any use for the acts, right? I mean,
right.
It was faith alone, so it's just
right.
a declaration of faith.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Okay, Christians are to be taught that he who sees a needy man and passes him by, yet gives his money for indulgences, does not buy papal indulgences, but God's wrath. Again, he's talking about buying indulgences. Christians are to be taught that unless they have more than they need, they must reserve enough for their family needs and by no means squander it on indulgences.
Again, yes.
Buying indulgences. Christians are to be taught that they buying of indulgences is a matter of free choice, not commanded. Okay, but that's interesting. Where now he's talking about, it almost sounds like he's saying you can buy indulgences.
Right, that he's very inconsistent
Yeah,
here.
but now I think what he may be getting at here is that Thomas does mention in the in his teaching on indulgences is that he said that the Pope could, for example, say, if you give money towards the building of a church, okay, that could result in like a partial indulgence. Okay, mm-hmm. So it's not, you're not buying the indulgence, but you're putting your money towards something like a project. Okay,
sure.
I think even Aquinas said, well, yeah, you can do that, but you can't go and say, hey, I'll give you $100 for an indulgence.
Sure.
It can't be that kind of a transaction.
Right,
okay. Right. Christians would be taught that the Pope, in granting indulgences, needs and thus desires their devout prayer more than their money. Okay, I think that we'd agree with that. Christians are to be taught that papal indulgences are useful only if they do not put their trust in them, but very harmful if they lose their fear of God because of them. Okay, we should not lose our fear of God because of indulgences, and so right. I think this so much of this is just a much ado about nothing. Mm-hmm. That Luther had such a fiery personality.
No, not at all.
Okay, next page. Christians are to be taught that the Pope would and should wish to give of his own money, even though he had to sell the Basilica of St. Peter to many of those from whom certain hawkers of indulgences cajole money. Okay, so he's wrapped up in money. Okay, Luther seems to be, it's almost like, you ever heard that story about Fulton Sheen when the guy came to him and he was complaining about all the riches of the church, and I can't believe that, how much wealth the Vatican has and this and that. And Fulton Sheen looked at him and said, he said, how much money did you steal out of the collection basket? Because he could read his soul.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard the story.
You haven't heard that?
No.
Yeah. He said, how much money did you steal out of the collection basket? And the guy just kind of melted. Wow. Because Fulton Sheen knew that the guy was so caught up in the church's money that he was trying to justify his own, own sin. Mm. So that's just the impression I get reading Luther here, is that it's weird. He's so caught up in the money. Okay. It is vain to trust in the salvation by indulgence letters, even though the indulgence commissary or even the Pope were to offer his soul as security. Okay. They are the enemies of Christ and the Pope, who forbid altogether the preaching of the word of God in some churches in order that indulgences may be preached. Okay, you can't forbid the preaching of the Word of God. Right. Injury is done to the Word of God when in the same sermon or equal of larger amount of time is devoted to indulgences than to the Word. Okay, so you know my pastor did a whole homily on indulgences last week. Okay, does that mean that was wrong? He has to give 51% of his time to this or that. Let's see. So, unveiled possession of one ceremony of the gospel. Very grateful. Okay, no, interesting. Okay, number 5. It is certainly the Pope's sentiment that if indulgences, which are a very insignificant thing, are celebrated with one bell, one procession, and one ceremony, then the gospel, which is the very greatest thing, isn't that interesting? He's saying the gospel is the greatest thing. I think we would say the Eucharist is the greatest thing, isn't it?
Which comes from the gospel, by the way.
Yeah, which preached with 100 bells, 100 processions, 100 ceremonies. So anyways, that just kind of gives you an idea of where Luther was coming from and what was on his mind. But
and again, I think the idea of if there were some really bad things happening with the selling of indulgence, stuff like that, that could definitely have been addressed. He just took it far.
Yeah, I mean, he could have taken a different approach.
He could have taken a different approach. He could have. There's a lot of things, or he could have said, "I actually want to fix these things that have happened," but he instead decided to go off on the path.
Now, I think, and again, I'm not a great history buff. Boy, you may know this better than I, but I don't know how long it took the church to respond to this. I don't know how
respond to Martin Luther.
Yeah, to Martin Luther. Did they drop the hammer on him? Because when you have a feisty character, you almost have to maybe cajole him a little bit and say, I guess what I'm saying was it a pastoral approach?
Yeah,
to use 21st century language of the church,
right.
Or is it just like you're wrong, you're excommunicated? I don't know, but because it certainly created a mess.
That's
without a doubt. I mean, back then. So
for sure.
Anyways, that's that. And are there any other comments, or do we have?
No.
Okay, nothing else. All right, gluttony. Let's talk about gluttony.
Let's talk about gluttony. Oh, look at all that gluttonous food.
So, just a couple of things about gluttony. So, here's a couple of quotes from Gregory the Great from the Summa about gluttony. And I find these pretty interesting. I read these on Adrian's show this morning. Gregory says, unless we first tame the enemy dwelling within us, namely our gluttonous appetite, we have not even stood up to engage in the spiritual combat. Okay? So like I said this morning, a lot of people really get into exorcism and spiritual warfare, and we go to these, like for example, I emceed a spiritual warfare conference, and it's just very kind of interesting. But I think what Gregory is saying here is that, like, if you go to a spiritual warfare conference and then go to lunch and have 3/4 pounders, you got to tame your body first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you want to go battling against the demons.
Right.
Or,
that's a really big thing, is that sometimes we don't take that time to, like, I think about, especially, there's like a lot of famous newer Catholics that could convert and stuff like that, and immediately they're going to go off and, like, and I'm like, hey, there's a lot of things, like, if you've been living in a habitual way, there's a lot of things in your mind and body that you need to train before you go out and do these big things, because you need to protect yourself first on, like, from attacks from this evil one. You have to be
and I was just thinking about like Father Chad Ripperger, who was the speaker at this conference, and he's a pretty fit guy, and I wonder if there is a connection between being somebody like an exorcist and being able to have some self-discipline, because you would almost seem like it would kind of go along with it. If you're battling demons and you can't even control your own, none of us control our passions completely.
No.
Right? I mean, we're all.
But I think being aware of where you struggle in them and helping yourself stay out of those situations.
Yeah.
Like, maybe don't go to an all-you-can-eat buffet if you really struggle with gluttony.
That's one of my pet peeves.
Right.
All-you-can-eat buffet. No one should eat all they can eat.
Well, no, and that's a whole thing. And it's, so, there's certain circumstances you got to control.
So here's another quote from Gregory. As long as the vice of gluttony has a hold on a man or a woman, all that he or she has done valiantly is forfeited by him.
Oof.
And as long as the belly is unrestrained, all virtue comes to naught. Okay. Let that sit. Let that sink in.
That was really brutal.
I mean, he's serious about this.
Yeah,
I mean, this is so. Anyway, so
it's a very simple thing. If we just can't control that simple thing, you're not going to be able to control anything else. Kind of like what Forrest was talking earlier. That there's a lot of things, not just food that leads to gluttonous behavior. I think it would be the the virtue of temperance is what you need to grow in, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this definitely falls under temperance.
So you need to be aware that that's what I struggle with, and if you struggle with it in food, you're going to struggle with it probably in other things too.
Yeah. So on the show this morning, Adrian says, Dave, what does Aquinas say about sumptuousness? Okay,
I don't even know what that is.
And I was like, I'm so glad I prepared for this because I got this one because I had read about. Do you guys know what sumptuousness?
Please define it.
Never heard of it.
Okay,
I've heard it, but I don't know what it means.
A sumptuous appetite or a sumptuous it means like costly.
High end taste.
Yeah, so
you have a bougie taste.
Exactly. So Aquinas says whether the species of gluttony are fittingly distinguished. Okay, so. He talks about sumptuousness, when, let's say, somebody only wants costly food, or I'm only going to go to a 5-star restaurant, okay? Where you're really picky about the kind of food, or I'll only have my food if it's cooked, to this temperature, okay? But and also he talks about the way that he seeks his food prepared too nicely. Okay, the guy that's sending the food back to the cook, 13 times at the restaurant because it's got to be just perfect.
Y'all.
Did I just hit a nerve?
Yes.
Oh, is that you?
No, I'm saying that I work in the food service industry. That is a real thing.
Do people do that?
Well, people just be very, very particular, and you do not understand how crazy people can be until you work in that industry, because something like as simple as one of the waitresses we have was yelled at for not bringing bread. We don't serve bread naturally with our food. You have to ask for it.
Yeah.
And the guy went off on her.
Really?
Cursed her out over it.
And she would have just gone and gotten him bread.
She's like, I'm sorry, I'll get you some bread. She's like, how many would you like? And would you like it toasted or not? And he's like, just bring me bread. Yeah. And it was so funny. Thankfully, though, for that particular case, this is a rarity. The people he was with were so embarrassed. When she came back, he was kind of cowering and apologized.
Oh, really?
So they probably went off on him, thankfully.
He got a little talking to.
Yeah,
huh?
I think so, which is good. But yeah, no, people.
Was this like a grown man?
Yeah.
Or it wasn't like a teenager. No offense.
Actually, I would argue that teenagers are a little more polite when it comes to service industry these days.
Well, the older you get stuck in your ways.
Yeah. And I get it. Like, obviously, if there's it was a legitimate mistake, we will fix it. But also, it's not a mistake that should ruin the whole day.
And I would also argue, and not to psychoanalyze this guy, but there probably was something else going on.
That's the thing, is that you also have to recognize that. But that goes into the, can you control yourself in those circumstances? Even if you're having the worst day possible, why do you have to make someone else's day the worst day too? You know,
you guys, that's not totally random, but it's kind of random. But did you guys see the movie Citizen Kane?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the whole Rosebud thing?
Yep.
Okay. Do you know about that?
Let me just say, I've seen the movie. I didn't understand anything.
Oh, really?
At all in the whole thing. I have to watch it again.
My understanding, and you're the movie person. The only one of us has a degree in film. My understanding is that when William Randolph Hearst, who the movie is about, right? When he was a kid, he had this sled. And something happened with the sled, and it shows that at the beginning of the movie, right? And there's something having to do with the sled, and he had a certain attachment to it, right? And so, and there's some kind of hurt or some kind of something, happened with him that they don't really explain until the end of the movie. And then he goes and he conquers the world and becomes wealthy and he builds mansions and does all this stuff and that's kind of his life, with Citizen Kane. And then on his deathbed, his last word was Rosebud. And so it's like he never let go of that.
Never let go.
Now, what that has to do with a guy yelling about the rolls at your restaurant, I'm just saying there's something.
So many underlying
what
things.
motivates us, you know?
Right. Right.
Or
no.
that guy may have gotten fired from his job that
right.
day. Or,
yeah,
you know,
we don't know
he's just
all of these
ticked
things.
off.
And it's just very ticked off. So obviously always conduct yourself as well. You can only control yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So if you're being the one getting yelled at, just be like, all right, man, like just we're okay.
Yeah.
Could I please have some rolls?
Yeah.
I mean, that might have been a better approach.
It might have been, you know.
Yeah. People are interesting, aren't they?
People are very interesting.
Very much
All
so.
right. He also says we should not eat hastily. Guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty is charged.
Yeah.
I've recently I saw some article about like eating with no distractions. Like don't eat even with a book or anything on your lap because of the moment of like, first off, you're inclined if you're distracted to eat more.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, oh, I'm just going to sit here. Like you're watching something on your phone, you're doing something.
Yeah.
And also, just so that you're like fully enjoying it and making it like, this is a meal time, that's it. And I don't need to be like.
And you should really enjoy it. I mean, I'm on this kick right now where I get Ritz crackers and this spinach dip and I will just go after it and I'll eat it so fast. And I even like embarrass myself and it's like, what? Just slow down, dude. I mean, I don't know why, but then you're only eating to fill your belly. You're not eating to enjoy it. And I think that's what he's getting at.
My sister and I have very different views on food, and so this is something definitely that is very much something I relate to if anyone struggles with. But my sister's very much food is fuel. Like it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to sustain me. And I'm over here like she and I will sit down for dinner. We'll have made separate things, and my plate's like very artfully done, and I've like done something nice, and she's over there with like a hunk of cheese and some ham and like some vegetables thrown on a plate, and she's just like, why does this always happen, Cecil? And I'm like, but it has to be art. It needs to be like beautiful and not that it has to be fancy in material so much as like I just want to make it well, because I like cooking. But
I was in Holland once, and my wife used to live in Holland, and so I went over there with her when we first got married, and they don't have the same attitude about food as we do, and so we were in this line, and they had these like slices of bread, and then they had little things of cheese, and they had things of meat, and you're making your own sandwich, right? So I took 2 pieces of bread, and I put a piece of cheese on, and I put a piece of meat on, right? And I kept walking, and the people across, the Dutch people looked at me, and they were just kind of like looking at each other laughing, and I asked Paula later, I said, what was that about? And she said, Dutch people, they don't put meat and cheese on the same sandwich, like that to them was like going overboard.
Funny.
Like I was being a bit much.
Greedy
Then
there.
I was thinking about like you go to like Jason's Deli and
that's like all you do.
And the sandwiches are this tall, and you've got sauerkraut and just pastrami and cheese and 3-4 kinds of cheese, but it's all it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't eat hastily, don't eat greedily, sumptuously, daintily.
Daintily.
That means
That's
regarding
different.
quantity.
Oh.
Yeah, don't eat too much. Daintily.
Daintily means to be like means to be very dainty.
No, food prepared too nicely. That's what it is.
So
he seeks food prepared too nicely.
So maybe not at those like 5-star restaurants where it's this big and it's like little tiny like cute presentation things.
Yeah, I think it's just got to be. I think your sister's right.
Crying. Yes. No, my sister has a very good view of these things in that she definitely enjoys food, but she is very much like, I just need to eat to sustain the body God has given me, and it doesn't need to be too fancy.
Yeah.
And I'm over there trying to cook up a 5-star.
All right. The 6 daughters of gluttony, which means like other things that are related to people who eat too much. The keenness of your reason is dulled. You have unseemly joy, like you're just like a little wild. Inordinate words, loquaciousness, scurrility. Have you ever heard of that word, scurrility?
Heard of it,
it's a levity resulting from a lack of reason.
Oh.
So you're just being kind of stupid. I mean, people, often that's more related to drinking, but when you drink and you get stupid and start saying dumb things. All right, well, that pretty much does it for gluttony. And I don't know if anybody else is still commenting or not.
Hope you all have a great Thanksgiving.
Did y'all bring any? Y'all don't bring trivia questions.
You're just so much better at it than we are.
Yeah.
I actually had 2 ideas.
Okay.
And I'm trying to decide between the 2, and they're both kind of Thanksgiving related.
Great, I love it.
So I'm going to go with the first one. The next one I'll do next week. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so I have here 20 traditional Thanksgiving items of food.
I love
okay.
it. Yes,
And
I
so
can do
we're just
this.
going to go back and forth.
Okay.
And again, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is on the list. So you only get a point if you
If
get
it's
one
on
of
the
these.
list, yeah.
Okay, so
Can we argue? No, I'm joking.
okay, so William gets to go first. So
and these are just dishes. Just
yeah,
stuff for.
then it could be main dish, side dish.
Is this like the
dessert.
most popular? Is this like a voted thing?
This
or is
is
it
like
just a
this is the
most common?
popular foods for
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
The most
So-
common one, turkey.
Okay, so
Wow.
yeah, you're starting off there. Okay.
Cranberry sauce.
Okay,
Yep.
that's you got one number 2. Okay,
Pumpkin pie.
yes, of course.
Green bean casserole.
Wait, hold on there. Okay, hold on there. Where's pumpkin? Okay, yeah. Okay, so William got that one. Green bean casserole. Yes, of course. The sizzle. Okay.
Pecan pie.
Yes, definitely. Okay.
Mashed potatoes.
Yes.
A question: is gravy considered separate? Is it mashed potatoes and gravy?
Wait, you're just gonna have to guess. But no, they are considered separate. So, but it's not your turn. So, William, do you want to steal that from her?
No, I actually had a different one that
Okay.
I wanted to shout out. How about ham?
That's
That
actually
was another one that I was
that's
gonna
actually
do.
true. I was like, what? Who eats ham? But
Oh,
yeah,
what? We always said ham and turkey.
glazed ham. Yeah.
I actually like ham a little bit more.
I
than
actually do
turkey, to be
too, but
honest.
Oh,
that's
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gravy, I guess.
Okay. Gravy. Where is it?
You better not have been lying to me.
No, it's on there. It definitely it's on there. Turkey gravy. Yeah. Okay. So it's okay.
Apple pie.
Yes.
Just going.
I'm
for
just
all
going
of
down
them.
all the
You're
pies.
like, let me get all of the
Yes,
pies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't get too crazy on this. Okay. Apple pie.
Rolls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are doing really well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start running out of ideas pretty soon, though.
I'm about to,
Okay.
yeah.
So roll. Okay. So we got rolls. Okay.
I have another one.
I got one. Okay. William, you got 10 seconds. Already starting to.
Oh yeah, there's.
They ran out of pies.
I'm gonna
to
give
say?
this one to.
Yeah, I think so.
Did somebody guess one?
I'm gonna give this one to her because had another one of mine. I'm gonna say mine and then you can do yours. I was gonna say sweet potatoes.
Oh, yams.
And then she said and she said Monica says stuffing, which we
Oh
forgot.
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Dressing, stuffing, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then stuffing. So Monica got that one.
So what our
Okay.
priorities were. Yeah, so Monica's
Okay.
got a
All
point.
right.
I thought of one. Salad.
Yeah, interestingly,
Not on Thanksgiving.
it's not on here. But salad.
unfortunate.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, okay, wait. How many have we gotten so far?
You got about 12 or so.
Jeez,
There's still.
Is it like I don't know? Oh, corn.
Yes.
Cornbread.
Yeah.
Corn.
Wait,
cornbread.
how many are you gonna do?
Corn.
Okay. Wait.
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Corn. You got that one. Okay.
Okay.
And a couple others.
Stop giving
Okay.
him clues. That's not fair.
You gave him the clue already. All right, William.
You
just
didn't have to.
Cornbread.
steal it from her. I mean, okay. Okay. Cornbread.
I don't know. Like I'm trying to think what else is really, really common.
There's a couple other like of course.
Oh, really?
Ones. Okay.
I'm running out of ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it my turn?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Brussels sprouts? I don't know.
There you go.
Really?
Good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
That's one of the ones I thought that you should get. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if this is exclusive to just Thanksgiving, but I'm gonna go ahead and say steak.
Oh,
Steak.
interesting.
Steak. Yeah.
People have steak for Thanksgiving?
I don't know. I mean, I know we do it for like Christmas,
Yeah,
but I
that's
don't know
true,
if
yeah.
That's like a whole
exclusively
different
for-
day.
Listen, guys.
I know
Yeah.
that, but
no,
like,
we do ham for Christmas. No, actually, no. Growing up, we did ham, but my wife does
So
turkey.
this is not a guess. This is not a guess, but someone told me the other night that they always do turduckens.
Turduckens.
She's a
I have no idea what
she's
that
a
is.
chicken inside of a duck.
But
Inside of a
if it had
turkey.
been on the list, would you have taken it?
I mean, if it was a point, sure. But yeah, like, but no, I don't think it's on the list.
Because you can't say this is not a guess.
So how many do we have?
I don't know. I mean, 15. I don't. There's 1, 2, 3.
Are there any more desserts on this list?
Yeah.
There's like 5 left, and some of these are a little bit more.
Let me look
obscure.
at let me check the comments and see
Okay,
if
do you
anyone has
want
any
me
better
to-
ideas. Broccoli casserole.
Oh yes,
That's what Monica gets that point.
Okay.
Corn casserole.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's one also.
Corn casserole.
Okay. I think that put William in the lead.
Whoa. To be fair, you gave him very obvious clues.
That's
Yeah. Where's that corn? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. I just love watching the competitiveness well up in
the sweet
Sissel.
potato pie.
Yeah, I think so. We'll give you that one.
Okay.
It's okay. So y'all ready for the rest of them?
Sure.
Does Monica want to guess anymore?
Any more,
Because
Monica?
we're out of time. Okay. Potato casserole.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. To your shame. Butternut squash.
Oh, squash would make sense. Yep. I almost said root vegetables for some reason. But yeah.
Corn pudding. Did one of y'all say that?
He said no,
Okay.
not corn pudding.
No. Okay. Broccoli casserole was said. Biscuits.
I said rolls.
Yeah, they're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. No.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry. All right.
Oh, that's a whole different species.
It's bread. It is bread.
I know, but okay.
What are the differences between rolls and biscuits?
The roll is soft. They look different. I mean, they may be in the same family, but.
But I was like trying to just being generic. I didn't realize how specific they were being. I thought we were just talking kind of like.
Yeah, what is the difference between a roll and a biscuit?
Well, a biscuit has layers, and it's like a buttery like layers,
Yeah,
and so
kinda
the way the
crispy.
dough is done differently. There is definitely differences, but in my opinion, you either have rolls or you have biscuits with dinner.
Yeah.
It's like
so that you're
it's
admitting
the
they're two
bread,
different things.
but they are in the same category.
What's like saying you
crescent, then our crescent rolls
you either
there.
have turkey or you have ham. So that means they're the same thing?
No, those are two
Okay.
different animals.
All right. Literally two different animals. Okay. All right. Well,
it's not back to the father unless this will argue. So.
Thanks. And she gets very, very possessive of her victory. All right. Well, I think it was a fun show. I think we all learned something, and I appreciate you all being part of it. Thank you, Sissel. Thank you, William.
That's my cue to go into the other room and start
Sissel
this.
has to go turn into a board operator. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. God willing, we'll have another show next Friday, which will be our last before Thanksgiving. And, of course, the next Friday we won't have a show. But thanks for being here, William.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Do not fall into heresy, or you'll
won't.
you'll disappoint my mom greatly, okay? She's counting on you. All right. Goodbye, everybody. God bless you.
Thanks for joining us for Back to the Father. And don't forget, the glory of God is the human person fully alive. If you have comments about the show, email Dave Palmer at grnonline.com.